Welcome to Attention Retention with Jackie McManis, your source for the latest trends in transportation recruitment and retention.
Welcome to an episode of Attention Retention. I'm your host, Jackie McManis, CEO and founder of KJ Media, recruitment advertising agency specializing in this space. And today we have an incredible guest on the show. Joining us is David Edge, who is a recruitment and retention consultant in our industry and has a wealth of experience on best practices on the 2 R's, recruitment, retention, and the third, recognition for trucking companies. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Jackie, thank you for having me today. I'm excited about the next few minutes.
Yes, me too. David, you and I had the joy of connecting the good old-fashioned way, I want to call it, social media, LinkedIn, and the content that you had out there in the industry and the wealth of experience. Like I mentioned earlier, thrilled to share your insights with our listeners today. But before we dive into the 3 R's, recruitment, retention, and recognition, could you share a little bit about your career in the trucking industry?
I'll be glad to. I have that passion for helping people, whether it be the driver, the office people that make the driver feel at home, that support the driver. So it's just an exciting time. I remember way back, and I'm not gonna give the year, Jackie, because people will say, "Well, he looks so young for that." But but I mean, back then, way back before, when trucking had changed and moved into the Class A CDL, where you got to have some training and things like that. I came in, done this probably 15, let's see, that was 92. Yes, I came in around 10 years later and worked at a training facility and got to know what trucking was all about. Actually went out on some trucks, drove some trucks, figured out what I wanted to do in life, and started teaching and training people how to get into this industry in the early days, before it was actually mandated now. Let's fast forward a little bit. I worked with several Fortune 500 companies and in their recruiting departments, kind of cutting your teeth down in the trenches, I call it, and meeting these men and women that keep America rolling. And it just gives me a pleasure to meet these guys and ladies. They're so professional. The ones that are doing it correctly, doing it right, they take pride in their work. And they're the ones that get us where we are today. I mean, it's amazing. People don't realize that everything we touched today so far came on a truck. And that truck driver drove all night long. He drove 10-hour shifts or 11-hour shifts. If he's a team, they would just churning that truck. And that's just fascinating to me. And it's just a passion I have. I started with a partner of mine in Albany, Georgia. We started actually a training center to train in the rural areas where a lot of the income they had no opportunity for advancement. They went to school. Some of them didn't make it because they had to go out on a farm or they had to go into a factory work to help support the family, just because of the low economic situations in the rural areas. Like even North Florida. Beautiful place, a beautiful country down here and over there in Florida, but they just didn't have opportunity. So we partnered with a couple of carriers and we developed a training method, presented it to them, and we started training the right way, I call it. We actually would have an instructor with 3 people, not 5, 6, 8, 10, and we would work with these people and get them very familiar with how that truck handles, how that truck operates. We would make sure they had a designated amount of hours on the road so that when they were ready, they could pass their test and then go to that next step with a good carrier that they could go ahead and get the rest of their training. We did that for about 5.5 years, and we had someone that wanted that school to kind of promote for themselves. And we gave it up, and I was kind of glad for that because that was a good learning experience.
Sure.
And I moved back into working in the actual hands-on day-to-day management of the recruiting departments. I moved out into the Midwest I say Midwest, the southern Midwest, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Oklahoma border. And we set up drivers to go out into the oil field and move for these large oil companies all of their heavy oil equipment. They could move it, 1,200 miles, they could move it 200. But it took that special skill for them. They had to have a little experience. And then we had to, get them schooled up on that oil field experience. Oil field business in 14 died out a little. And I started this consulting gig by accident. I had a gentleman out at Atlanta. Do what?
I said, that's how the best things start. So
I stumbled into it. Had a company in Atlanta, contact him, put me with, and they said, can you consult with him on not only his recruiting, but he has a specific safety issue he wants some outside help on. And since I had a lot of knowledge from the training industry on the FMCSA, I did that for a couple of weeks, enjoyed it, and got a few good clients. Just when they needed something, they would call. And the door came knocking to bring me up to the current for a permanent position with a medium-sized carrier that had a nice recruiting department, but they wanted to take it to the next level. They wanted to punch it up a notch. And for those 7 years, I really got in there and made some good connections. I had some good people, a good team behind me. And I always believe in giving, and I know this is jumping a little ahead, but when we get to the recognition part, that's something I believe you got to do. And those people, we had very low turnover in that division, created a good environment. Drivers could feel it. And, we've taken a little hit in our trucking economy this year, and I found myself back in doing what I love to do, and that's talk to other people like you. But I'll talk to some of the directors and senior VPs on, hey, best practices in this type of economy. How can we cut costs and still keep our brand name and outlet? So I guess that's the long version for me. So you can take that and dice that up in whatever way your audience would like to know about it.
I think the point to the audience is, David, you have one heck of a resume and a wealth of experience in the industry. And I think I actually just want to comment on what you said earlier about our industry and, let's say civilians, as you call it, not understanding everything that they're touching, in the Targets of the world, the Walmarts, Amazon. It comes on a truck. And, the one silver lining I always say during COVID is that the folks that are outside the industry really saw the importance of supply chain. The truck driver was celebrated, on Lester Holt and national brand news. And I remember friends of mine, family members of mine that are outside of the industry, right? I didn't grow up in the industry, and I was lucky enough to stumble into it myself about 18 years ago, and I'm going to stick with it. But they call me and they say, now, Jackie, I understand why you're in the trucking industry, right? Now they want to get involved too. So it's exciting, and the industry needs more folks like you, and clients and companies do too, because we're always looking for. I know a lot of our clients are, what is the next practice? What's the best practice? How do we stay competitive? How can we recruit? But more importantly, how can we retain, and how can we recognize our current our support staff? But let's jump right in to the first R, recruitment. So let's talk about attracting top talent. What strategies have you found to be most successful for companies in attracting drivers and talent to their organization?
Very good question. And we have, that has been I guess you would say, the $1 million question for years, especially on how to get that I call it the unicorn, that driver or that team that is just, where they go, they land, they research, they stay. That's the hard part. And a lot of times when we're recruiting that driver, and I can go into a couple of quick synopses, but when we recruit that driver, we got to be, what's the good word for this? We got to do our job better at letting that driver know who we are. We need to stand out. Because let's face it, Jackie, we all know in this industry, and it's if I was a driver, I would do the same thing probably at times. Even if I'm fairly happy, I'm going to look out and see what's out there. I mean, and when they do that, unfortunately, in our world, we have to get these big job boards up, and then they start getting calls from people, and which is they get choices. But a lot of them, because when they're either riding down the road on the Bluetooth or, they're talking to 3 or 4, within 2 or 3 hours, they get those jobs, even though some of them are very close. They'll give them some of the facts and say, oh, this was this company, that was that. And the recruiter never goes back and really makes themselves stand out for that driver so that he wants to come to orientation at your company. And that's the really, I always call that the secret sauce. We have to be better than that last person that they talk to. We got to make ourselves. And how do we do that? We set ourselves apart. We make sure he knows or she knows that, hey, what we're telling them is not some pipe, I just can't believe this is true. We got to hit the road. And, and there's a couple of things I do and that I advise people to do. And I started this, and the reason I know it works, when I was at that large company where they, that drivers would just get bombarded, and I would sit there and they'd call in, I would talk to them, and I always had a thing. We're selling something to that driver that he needs. He's selling something to us that we need, and that's a qualified driver. So I always use the ABC for a recruiter.
Okay, tell us more.
You always be closing. When you talk to that driver, you assume he's coming to your company. You get him committed, or her. When I say he, you get he or she, or you get them committed, and you make sure that you're in contact. We have all of this AI, all of this technology, and that is fantastic. It can send a little email for us. It can do the little text. But you know what? Jackie, what's the sweetest name in the English language? Your name.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
When I hear David, I'm looking around. Hey, who's got something to do for me?
And nothing.
And that driver, when you call, when you're emailing, it's fine. When you're texting, it's fine. That's a good tool. But at some point, if you're not talking to that driver at least just 2 minutes and go, hey, Mary, or Linda, or John, or Darius, listen, wanted to call it touch base. I've got everything, done. And I just want to make sure there's no question. I know we've been texting, but is there anything you want to ask me that we didn't have on the text, just face to face? And that you would be surprised how much that comes across to them. So every time you talk to them, we're setting them up.
David, I could not agree with you more, because here's the thing, where with my company, for example, we embrace data for our clients, right? We help with the automation. We want the recruiters to speak to the most qualified prospects, right? Because there's a lot of tire kickers. There's a lot of folks that just don't fit your minimums. However, we always say, pick up the phone and call the driver. Introduce yourself. There are some companies out there, they want the full application, which I understand why, right? But other companies are also calling that driver and saying, hey, David, thanks so much for applying. I know you filled out the short form. Any other questions that you have for me? I just wanted to call and check in. And it's a 2-minute, 5-minute conversation. That value of a human connection can never be replaced by AI. AI is a tool that we all can leverage, but it's not to replace the human element, because that's something that's irreplaceable. And I couldn't agree with you more. In the first round of interviews, drivers want to talk to the recruiters. And if you think about it, we're really advertising to and targeting 5 different generations of the workforce, right? All the way from Gen Z to baby boomers. And everyone has a different tool of communication, but doesn't matter. The one thing that's always true is that drivers want to talk right to the recruiters. So that's a really great point that you've been made.
I love to hear it. I want to hear their names. to me, that'll set that recruiter apart. And then, and being available. I hired a recruiter. This recruiter was, I would dare say she was the best recruiter, but she had, and I jokingly use this term, but she was seriously, ADD. She was all over the place. So she constantly would make notes. And because I always told them we use the app tracking system that most trucking companies use. And I always said, if you don't note it, it didn't happen. You don't note it, it didn't happen. And she would go, but I text them. I said, pick up the phone. Your personality is so great. When you pick that phone up, they will not go anywhere else. And she started doing that. And her numbers went from super level to, ultra, hypersonic level. And her drivers loved her. They called her back. When she figured that out, she knew their family members. She knew their kids, their grandkids. She would say, how is your grandson doing? How does football game go the other night? Or baseball or soccer? She figured that out. And if we could get more recruiters trained in this industry as they come in to figure that out, that is the thing. And even attracting our top talent inside, most of that caliber of talent, you don't have to keep that, it's not as dog eat dog as I say, but you got to have that, that at least human contact. I had a young man that did his doctorate in psychology and on the, of people and the sense of their being, what made them feel closer to somebody they don't even know. And it was that human interaction, just like, you and I are interacting, had never seen you in person, but, feel like we know each other a little bit, So it's that. And that's just, that's the number one thing. Be yourself.
Yeah.
Use your tools, but you have a talent and it's called your personality. Use it.
Yep. Everyone has their own unique personality, and obviously there's, forms of strict scripts to follow that companies will put together for new recruiters. But once you really lean into who you are and you can express that from one individual to the next, that's really going to be the competitive edge. David, we're going to go right into the next R here, retention methods. Let's talk about that two-way relationship while we're on topic. So from your experience, what specific strategies have proven to be most effective in keeping employees engaged, loyal, and passionate about their work in the transportation industry, given that, majority of drivers are out on the road and they're not in the office every day? I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
That is, we all saying that we got to get them here, but it seems like a lot of places and the mentality and the cultures, we get them here and, oh, well, there's more out there, and yes, there are more people out there. But we know we're shrinking a little. As you mentioned, we have people that are in that baby boom area, side of it. They're getting ready. They would like to quit at some point. They know it's time, and we don't have enough people coming in as quick as we need. And I know we're working on that in the industry as a whole, trying to come up with some creative ways. But that's the most important. If you go and if you look on my LinkedIn, that's a little outdated now, and I think I might have pulled it down because I wanted to tweak it for the 21st century, so to speak, or for the 2020s. I did it was called Building Blocks to Retention, and this was good for everybody from I said the guy down there that meets the driver in the break room because he is taking care of the floors and he's taking care of making sure it's just pristine for that driver. To the person on the fuel island, to the payroll person they talk to every day, to every week, to their dispatcher, fleet manager. You got to build it's a block, it's a building. You got to build it up. And that starts when that recruiter, it goes back, picks up the phone and starts that relationship. And one thing I started so that so many companies that I have talked to and the ones I have worked with and consulted with and actually came into that culture, they would just, rely on the driver to remember everything. They get orientation, and what happens, Jackie? They get mad, they get upset because it's logical. If I were having 3 interviews today, if I didn't keep a record of all of them, I would make the perfect company for David.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no perfect company for David, and no perfect company for anybody. You have people, I'm sure, in your employee, and it has left because they were good people, but they just didn't get it, or they weren't molded in because they thought it was something else. So here's what I started. I tell that recruiter that if they're coming on a Monday orientation, on Thursday, they need to have to that driver a welcome. I call it the welcome and letter, and puts their offer, it puts their mileage pay or their salary, if they're getting a salary, if they're still getting a bonus, it puts that, how it's paid. It puts all of that in writing for that driver to see.
I love that.
It tells them where to go when they get there, if they are flying in, if they are driving in a rental or their personal car. It gives them step by step how to get to their lodging, what's going to happen the first day, what time to be there. That we'll have our staff into the hotel that they're staying at 6:30 in the morning, getting them ready to go do the DOTs and all that good stuff. That makes them feel. It makes them feel connected already. It makes them feel like they are, they're part of the company. And I quit years ago using, hey, we're like family. No, we're not. We want you to be. And that is so wore out. I saw a thing on there, and it's not. We're not like family. Yeah, you own your business, and your employees are so valuable to you. I know, but when it comes time to make the difficult decision, they're not family. They are, and you want to make them, you don't want to make them feel negative about the experience having to leave, but at the same time, we're going to protect our families. Yeah. In my business, if I have somebody in my family, helping me doing this and that, and I had somebody else out there scheduling for me or whatever the case may be, and times are super tight, I'm taking care of family first.
You're taking care of the people sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table, right?
That's right. And drivers have gotten so tired of hearing these little cliches, I think. Yeah. I want to tell them, we're going to treat you with respect. No matter what happens, I'm going to have you. If we have to part ways, we're going to do it respectfully. If we need to make difficult decisions because the economy's changing and maybe we need to, make some changes on a run, we're going to do it with respect. Right. And if that's something you can't live with and you decide to part ways, we want you to have that same respect back because it's earned, not given.
Yeah.
So I tell our recruiters, first thing you do, put it in writing. If they get there and they go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was, because I also implemented on the orientation people and on our payroll people that the driver gets on his next to the last day. I had to think which day it was. Next to the last day of orientation, he gets the same information, but it's in the form of a final offer. It tells how his bonus is paid out. It tells how his pay is going to work. And all that. And if he takes both letters and matches them up, guess what? They agree. There's none of this bait and switch coming in. And I'm not saying people are doing that by and large. And sometimes trucking changes and we have to offer something different. But the key is, don't wait till the last minute. Tell them ahead of time. And let it fall where it grows.
That is such an interesting point, David, because that's something, if you think about it, an offer letter at that size will go to typically anyone in executive leadership if you're hiring. I know when I'm bringing in employees to work in the office for our agency, everyone's getting an offer letter that is clearly printed out, what the salary is going to be, what the PTO is, what's the bonus structure, and, both parties sign. I sign it, the new employee signs it. And that should be something that is given to the driver as well. So everything is crystal clear that this is what the expectation is. Obviously in trucking, obviously in any industry, sometimes you need to be a little bit flexible, a little bit nimble. But if you guys both had the baseline of what you offer, what their orientation schedule is going to be, when they can expect to receive their first paycheck, what that average is going to be, because sometimes drivers just don't know. And that then builds a lack of trust. And as soon as you have that lack of trust within that first, let's say 15 to 30 days, they're gone. Mm-hmm. They are gone.
And that brings me to the next step. And I mean, we're not going to go through all the steps, but the next step is we want to get them here. We want them to stay 30 days or 90 or 60. And I always tell them, I said, give me 60 days. Why? Because the first 30, you're learning us and we're learning you. The next 60 is can we get along with each other? And I said, and your fleet managers have been, your fleet managers has been through courses, and they have instructions on respect. You guys might not agree with each other on certain things, but you got the respect. If your fleet manager and the loan council, they should be on the phone, or sending you a message going, hey, beyond our control, but I am looking right now, and I will not leave here until I have gotten with you and said, hey, either we can do this, or please hang tight, or till the night people can do it or whatnot. But keep them in the loop. That's one of the biggest, to me, stages. Once you get them there and hand them off, when you hand something off, the next phase knows we're all on the same page. We've all been trained in that. And that's where the disconnect with a lot of our carriers come from. And it's not intentional. It's just they think that they're getting too busy to stop and slow down and do that. The last carrier I actually worked with up until September, they realized that, and every new employee that would come through the door that's going to interact with drivers went through an additional small orientation on how to negotiate, the art of talking to someone respectfully, how to give and take. Because when you're asking a driver to do something out of his normal, as far as, let's say he's on a dedicated, he goes here to here, here to here, but one of those loads canceled, maybe something got spilled in the truck, and you got to be able to negotiate with them and let them know all of the avenues. If you want to sit and wait, you're going to be waiting about 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to wait, you're not going to, you've chosen that. But I can do this for you. I can get you moving so you're making money. And it's that art. And we teach those people how to interact with that. And if they can't do it and their personalities can't conform to that, that's probably not the best place or the best department for them to be in. Right. And we like the drivers to know that if you live in certain areas and you want to move up at some point and proving yourself, there are opportunities that you can grow. Mm-hmm. And if you will indulge me on the last minute before we move to your next star on the new driver training program, that is
let's talk about that. Yeah,
absolutely. This is my passion.
And that's the thing, David. You and I talked, a couple days ago on the phone. I'm like, this is going to be an incredible show because of the wealth of knowledge and experience. But this point really got me excited because it's a question that a lot of trucking companies have. Because we have baby boomers are retiring, right? And as an industry, we are competing with other industries to get fresh blood, right, into our space. And I really want to have you share with the audience and discuss successful training programs that you've done with trucking companies, your clients that you've worked with on new graduates. This is, like I mentioned, a big question for a lot of trucking companies. We understand we need to expand our reach, bring new people in, but it's overwhelming for a lot of trucking companies, right? There's time, the money, and high turnover rates if it's not done correctly. So let's talk, David. Can you share some successful new driver training programs you've implemented with trucking companies?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'd mentioned that back in the mid, 2000 era, coming in between 2000 2010, we actually wrote our own training material. We did some consulting. My partner, myself, and a silent partner, we had all started at the same place in that realm, finding new people, getting them that they said, hey, this is something I want to do. And we had people we talked out of it. And here's the key. When we trained them at the training school, and I see more and more schools now in the last 10 years have gotten to this point, they do want to get them out there as quick as possible, but they're doing a better job of the quality of training so that when a carrier can get that person, they can have something to work with and a foundation. Now at the carrier, I had the opportunity to kind of switch gears out of the day-to-day of having to be managed, direct a full-scale recruiting department, because we wanted to go and see what could happen building a new driver training from the ground up. So as you imagine, Jackie, I had to, I pulled a lot of knowledge. I talked to a lot of people in different training centers, finding out, hey, what are you doing now and your carrier's doing, to keep coming in to get your students. So we would know where to, kind of where to go with it, where to go, what to do, and pick the right facilities that were giving the best training. Mm-hmm. Now with us, I wrote all the marketing material, and this was from dust, and we built it up. And I had some good media help. I had some good marketing people that helped me, because I'm a chameleon. I can know just enough about something to get in trouble if I don't have some help. But I had great people helping on that, and we ended up starting a program. We had to have our own drivers. They had to have 1 year of experience, no accidents. They had to be safe, but they had to have a full year so they could have seen a winner. We prefer two winners, but after 1 full year, we would evaluate them. And, and then we had our current drivers, so that some of them had been with us, a year. Some of them had been with us 5 years. Some of us had been with 3. So one gentleman had been with me 10 years. And, solo drivers are solo for a reason. They like the solitude. They, they love it. And
that's part of it, right? Yeah.
And that was the hardest part, was when we got to the point where our safety department and I had written and both agreed on how we were going to train somebody for 4 full weeks, so that when they were done, we know that they have the groundwork to be safe and to keep on, to go out there with confidence. It took probably 3 months to get enough mentors so we could start taking, 10 trainees and let them run through the course. We got a few more so we could start staggering. It was a process. Mm-hmm. And here's what happened. We would bring our trainees, or our trainers, we call them, they're actually mentors. They're not, you train an animal, you mentor a human. Yeah. So we would bring our mentors in that they wanted to be a mentor, and we would do it twice a month. They would all go in and sit at a big round table. We'd have our safety people come in, and we don't watch videos there. We hands-on train. We talk it out. We round table it. We put in different scenarios. and then they have to pair up. They had to pair up 2 by 2 and go out there and train each other on backing maneuvers. Because let's face it, they've been out there driving. They don't think about backing anymore. It's natural. So, we had to go back through the Smith system. Hey, talk them through it because we want you the first week to have your trainee over there driving. When they're driving, they need to be talking to you so that it's burning into their memory like it's in yours. And, and so then once they did all of that, we tested them out. Hard test, by the way. I mean, it wasn't one of these, okay, you're a trainer or a mentor. Once they made that grade, then we would put someone with them. And here's the key. And I'm not going to knock, Jackie, I never knock other people's ideas because, hey, my ideas sometimes might be in far left field to people. We were not going to go out there and make a quick team for 4 weeks. We wanted that new driver to be in that driver's seat, the mentor, all in beauty. Okay, not in the sleep, all beauty. Training, coaching, teaching, and let's face it, the first week out there, that new driver's not going to be able to sit behind that wheel 11 hours. So they drive 3 or 4, and if they're tired, they go off the driving line, but on duty, and the mentor drives a little, and he's coaching them, walking them, and talking them. Then when they're ready, we go back. We did that for 2 full weeks. Then we start allowing the mentor and the student or the trainee to separate a little bit. Okay. The mentor is always in control, but they're going to run the 14-hour clock, so that the trainee driver possibly might drive 8 hours or 9, and then the mentor can push that truck out, and they're both still learning. And that's getting that trainee used to sleeping in a truck while it's moving, because he might decide he wants to team. So, but it's never a full shift. And once they're done, we bring the trainee back in. We test them a hard road test.
Is it right?
Hard. Okay. And if they don't pass, we give them an opportunity for another week. And we're paying them now. We believe we're investing the money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the way we did it, Jackie, now we did lose people in the first 4 weeks because they just got out there and they just said, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Or, my best friend's dad's got a trucking company and they're hauling logs out of the woods. I'm going to want to go do that. Right. This is not for everybody. But even with that, I tracked it. My marketing assistant tracked it. At 6 months, our retention rate on that was it was phenomenal. I really don't want to throw a lot of figures out there, but I can say it was well above 60%.
I was just going to say, David, we got to give the audience a little bit of a number. I can say this, it was well above the 60 to 65% on retention rate for new drivers training, and that shows the success and the power of having not just any mentor, not just any driver, taking the time, putting them through rigorous training internally, and making sure it's a good fit for both parties. Because one thing we're seeing too, David, is a lot of folks, especially now that we're looking outside of the industry, they maybe do not have or did not come from a family of truck drivers or in the industry. So they're going to, maybe see an advertisement, get their CDL, and it sounds good, right? It looks good. No college education, make, 70 to 100 grand first year. But once they get out there, they're like, this isn't for me. Or they need some sort of coach, some sort of mentor. We all do need that. And to take that time to develop that type of program and have well over 60% retention rate within the first, 6 months to a year, that the proof is in the pudding.
And not taking away from the larger companies, they're having to do it on such a larger scale. Their numbers are not going to be that high. This was a medium-sized carrier with under, I'm going to say under 800 trucks. But with a good foundation. Been in business for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
The new owners have been there for 12, privately owned. It's not and been bought out by the equity. So it was like, we were all like, and I'm trying to think, we were all on the same page. We all had the same culture. We all had the same drive.
Yeah.
We had fleet managers that knew who those mentors were, and they knew they had somebody. And when that person got out, it was our goal to keep them with that same dispatch fleet manager at least for 2 to 4 weeks until they could absorb into to where they were really needed. So that way the fleet manager could get them up to speed because he's already learned them in 4 weeks. Here's their habits. Here's their traits. Here's what they like to do. Here's where I need to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about the approach. It's all about that. It's not going to be a win-win, get profitable tomorrow proposition. It's going to be something that a company, I don't care if they have 100 trucks and they want to grow to 200. I don't care if they've got 1,000 trucks. They have to, and those companies have the smaller profit margins.
Yeah.
They have to be willing to invest the time and the money and wait for that return. The RO. I can't even think of it, Jack.
The ROI. Yeah, exactly.
Their return on their investment.
Yeah. And that's something right there, David, is that I think that times, folks, it is $1 million question always, right? With the 3 R's. How do you recruit better? How do you retain? And we're going to jump into the third R quickly, but it's not a flip of the switch, right? It takes time. It takes strategy. It takes monitoring. It takes evolving, editing. There's so many different variables. And so that's a constant, full circle and being able to set something up for success. I want to jump now to the third R, recognition practices.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about culture of appreciation. How do companies cultivate a culture of appreciation within their team, ensuring that all employees, obviously drivers included, feel valued and acknowledged for their contributions, again, even in roles that involve a significant time out on the road?
Correct. A lot of people think that appreciation is 1 week in September.
Sure.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. The one thing we can do, and it's like one of the presidents that I reported to said, if we can get that driver here, get him, in our company, and are we going to offer him a pie in the sky bonus? No. We're going to offer him a bonus because we have to be competitive. But we want them to stay, so we're going to put some bonus on the back end that if they're here a year, for example, we're going to give them 2 cents a mile lump sum for everything they've done and say, thank you so much. Now we want you another year, so we're going to do this next year for you. So that's the longer term to keep a good driver happy. So when he is thinking that somebody's offering him a penny more, and hey, in trucking, pennies are huge. I know it. A tenth of a cent is huge. Sometimes profit is down to a 1/12, and that's where they make a mantle alone. So a penny's huge. But I had a couple of teams I know, and we have very good relationships. I actually helped them get over to a carrier that I was with, and loving it. They love it, but their thing is when so David, do you know when they're going to start doing some safety awards for people being safe and some longevity and recognize, just instead of putting our name in the newsletter, hey, I've been, our anniversaries this month are so and so. I said, well, that's a good idea. I said, I've been pushing for that, but I said, I'm going to, since I'm not there anymore, I said, I'm just going to, as an outside that knows the inside, I'm just going to, send a note and just say, hey, I've got people asking and I'm not there, we need to help, and I still say we, because I'm just part of the game, I said, need to help these people or at least show some appreciation. So the first thing we did is when I started, and when they came out of orientation, we branded them. We gave them a polo shirt, a couple of nice T-shirts. If it was winter, sweatshirt, hoodie. We gave them some just little things that they could appreciate on the road. We had a goodie bag for them that had this detergent, softener, shampoo, toothpaste, and all that. I said, hey, you might lose yours out there at some truck stop. Here, put this over in your truck to the side. When they would leave there, there is a thing a lot of companies do when they have the inspections and they're clean, they do reward them. And that is a very important. When they get an inspection and it is clean, that's hard to do sometimes. Reward. When they have done a huge accomplishment, we had one gentleman that actually saved 2 children from a car fire he drove up on. He grabbed the extinguisher. He was a team. The teammates started doing a little extinguishing around it so he could get into the door because it hadn't got in there yet. And the mom and daddy were out trying to do it, and he got in there and just pulled them out. Suffered a few little burns. We recognized him. We're not going to pay him for the good deed, obviously, but we gave him a plaque. We promoted him on our media. We had him do a video that told the story and that why he even stopped, because nowadays, Jackie, I know it's dangerous out there on the road, but if you see a serious, something that's happened there and you can tell it's serious, the truck drivers, a lot of them nowadays, and I understand why it don't happen, liability and all of that. But, in the older days, they'd pull over, they'd be your road heroes. And now the big cities have the, road heroes and the bright yellow trucks to help out too. But truck drivers, they're the unsung heroes a lot of times. They get blamed for everything on accidents, no matter if they get brake checked. Thank God for cameras now forward facing because they are saving so many of these hardworking men and women's careers. But that's just one example. When one of our drivers do something, hey, they're a coach of the community softball or basketball team down at their local recreation. Reward them, make them notice. Hey, the next time sponsor their team. $500. $500.
Exactly.
They didn't get the money.
A long way.
Most of them would tell you, I don't want that money. Give it to my basketball team. Right. And that's one thing we did. We did there is that we would pick up a good driver running good miles, hard work. You've been with us a while, and we'd ask them, say, hey, what's your passion? And they'd tell us things we didn't even know about, and we could donate. So it's those little things, and Jackie, I could hand you a check for $1,000 and say, here, it'll take you 10 seconds to spend it, but here you go, it's yours. And that's nice. The money's great. Mm-hmm. But I could also say, hey, Jackie, you have been doing a great job. I mean, it's just fabulous. Here's what I'd like you to do this weekend. Take you and whoever you want out to Ruth Chris or to Landry's, whatever the best place in town is to eat. You go out there, you eat, here's a card from the company, bring me the receipt, the card back Monday morning. Thank you so much for all you do. Now, the money's great, but you know what? I can take my significant other, I can take my son, I can take my best friend and go, hey, we need to thank my company. They recognize that I had done a good job. So it's those little things.
It is.
But the reward for these drivers and recognition, it goes back to respect. That's what they want.
Yep. 1,000%. And well said. I mean, in the industry, from trucking company A to B to C, it's all relatively competitive when it comes down to pay, right? There are some Fortune, larger companies that we know of that, have some kind of insane sign-on bonuses and overall base pays. But when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, it's all competitive across the board. So taking that time to cultivate a thank you to highlight what they're doing on your socials, the power of an internal newsletter. Those are the factors that really, I know when I'm speaking to drivers on Sirius XM 146 Road Dog Trucking, they're staying with companies not necessarily for the pay. They're staying because they feel respected and they feel appreciated by the trucking company. And so much so, where drivers might say, hey, I'm actually going to apply to this company over here because they're paying me more. 9 times out of 10, if that company is really treating the driver with respect, they're going to come back. The grass isn't sometimes always greener because you can't beat the quality of feeling respected and having this appreciation between staff and drivers. David, can you provide a brief overview of your consulting services and what you offer to trucking companies?
I'll be glad to, Jackie. First of all, the Edge CDL Group brings to the table a wealth of knowledge, not just myself. We have people in compliance that have years in compliance and safety. We have people that can help on the recruiting side as far as giving good advice and best practices. Things we will do, we can meet over the phone for, if they need a consult, if it says safety group has an issue or the recruiting group has a question after we've been in there and worked with them, motivated them. But the biggest thing we do is we want to come in and be proactive with the recruiters. So they're the first ones that driver hears and sees. And we want to make sure that they're maximizing to their full potential, being excited, motivated, being ready to close that driver and get them ready for orientation. Typically, they need to be in orientation within 5 to 6 days at best, unless they're given a notice. So that's something we can do. We can come in, depending on the size of the company, for 2 days, 3 days. That's about the max. And, we break them out in groups because we definitely don't want your recruiters off the phones and missing calls from drivers. So that's a quick overview, Jackie, of, what the CDL Group can provide for carriers, large and small. And we have had some success in the last 30 days with a couple of carriers on smaller levels. And they have, matter of fact, one has reported back to me that they have seen an uptick of about 8% in closed apps and an increase in orientation. And for this time of year, that's very impressive.
Incredible. So that's right, folks. David Edge is the go-to recruitment and retention specialist for the trucking industry. David and I have had some fabulous conversations over the last couple of weeks and highly recommend him and his services if you're looking to increase full applications, increase the overall retention rate as well. And so, David, how can folks get in touch with you?
Very simple, Jackie. We have a dedicated email account. It is very simple. It is David at the Edge. Scratch that, Jackie. David at the CDL Group .net. Now that's .net, but David at the Edge. Oh, but Jackie, I'm putting that last name in there. Let's go here. David at the CDL Group .net. They can also reach us and look on our YouTube channel because we do a weekly little 10-minute survey on recruiting, talking, just driver talk, talking about recruiting and retention. And that's on our YouTube channel, and that is at the Edge CDL, at the Edge CDL. So we put some things out. It's very raw. It's very authentic, Jackie. It's not all glamored up and glitzy. It's just down to earth, me talking. If you have questions, and want them answered, we can do that there. You can send us a note. And Jackie, come Monday, we have our new website coming out, and it is the CDL.net, the CDL.net. So that's how they can reach me. I can give you a phone number, but a lot of times I'm on the phone. If you can just shoot me a quick email within usually 30 to 45 minutes, I can send you a message back and set a timer.
In the new website, link to his YouTube page, all in the show notes. David, thank you so much for joining us today on Attention Retention. And to everyone listening, we really hope you found this podcast insightful, speaking with David on how to increase your hiring rate, how to increase the energy and motivate your team and highly recommend reaching out to David. Feel free to share this knowledge with your peers and industry colleagues. Your sharing can make a difference. Together, we can empower the industry to thrive. Thank you so much, everyone. Until next time.